Welcome once again to this edition of the Cow Report. Of course, we are coming to you live from the beautiful downtown L.E. Phillips Memorial Library and taco stand. And of course, with me, as usual, is my rusty and trusty sidekick, Fred, the true Stafford.
Howdy.
Glad to see you again, Fred. How you been?
Oh, I've been better.
Well, we're glad to see you're up and running again. And,
Say, what have you been drinking there?
well, I've been
Your eyes are kind of bloodshot.
been up for 2 days studying for a final.
Yeah.
Anyway, of course, this also doubles as the annual meeting of the Loyal Order of the Raccoons. So if there's any of you raccoons out there, you can just go along with us because this is our annual meeting. All right, Fred, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Of course, we always do on this show. It's amazing. It's amazing how much you missed while you're gone, Fred. Okay. I want to mention again there's a special meeting coming up. Let's see here. Turning of the Tide, February 25th, 1995 at UW Eau Claire. And it's put on by Wisconsin Collegians for Life, Fred. You ever heard of them?
I think so.
This is the Pro-Life Conference of the Year, Fred. I think it's their statewide conference. It's being held at Eau Claire this year. It starts at 8 a.m. on the 25th and goes till 9 p.m. So there's a lot to be talking about, Fred. Here's some of the workshops. Total Protection by Mary Sinander. Pro-Life Activism by Greg Chesmore. Post-Abortion Syndrome by Pete Palmer and Sue Badger. Crisis Pregnancies by Mary Boham.
That's the 25th, that's a Saturday.
Yeah. Abortifacient Contraceptives by Sue Gross-Cruz and Shannon Hall. And Embryo Research by Rebecca Lindstedt. So there's quite a few different areas to talk about. Of course, Mary Sinander is the keynote speaker, and she will be talking about euthanasia, Fred. And I don't mean taking a trip over to China either. Okay. Well, Fred, on the last program, we were going to give away this deck of cards, but nobody got the answer right.
Nobody did, huh?
No, they had to name the two states that came into the Union. And if my memory serves me well, it was Tucson and, no, it wasn't Tucson, it was,
Tucson isn't a state.
it could have been. It was, I'll tell you, Fred, it was Arizona and I think Oregon. Were the two states that came in the Union that day on the last program. So nobody got it. So the deck of cards is still available tonight. Of course, Fred, since you're here, you're going to have to answer a couple of these too. And we'll have these deck of cards that we'll be giving away to the winner of that all-important question, Fred. And of course, we might as well start with that and get it out of the way. Today is what, Fred? What date is this?
Today? It's the 20th.
All right. Glad to see you're on the ball. February 20th. Now this one's for the deck of cards. First person to call in and gets that question right wins a deck of cards, Fred. And of course, they got to come down here and pick it up. That way they can take a tour of the L.E. Phillips Memorial Library, public access, and taco stand. Of course, you might be on duty, so if you're on duty, Fred, you can lead them on the tour. All right, February 20th. Let's see, we'll get a hard one here, Fred. In 1950, February 20th, this senator spoke to the Senate for almost 6 hours, providing information on 81 State Department employees whom he believes to be communists. Talked for 6 hours, Fred. February 20th, 1950. 35 years ago today, Fred.
That was Senator Joseph R. McCarthy.
All right. I guess you're going to answer that one, so we'll have to give another one to the audience, Fred. This one.
I didn't know you. I thought you were asking me.
I got another one here, Fred. 12 years later, 1962, Marine Lieutenant Colonel became the first American to go into orbit around the Earth when he circles it 3 times and safely lands in the Atlantic. First caller with that right answer wins that beautiful deck of elephant cards there, Fred. All right. So this is the cow report. We got my head chopped off there a little bit. I think we're going to get that straightened out there so you can see the Loyal Order of the Raccoons mascot there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. This is a cow report, Fred. We are live.
Yes, I hope so.
So how you feeling now, Fred?
Well, I felt better.
We had plenty of calls and cards and letters and people wanting to know what happened to Fred. So here you are. So we'll take a call and we'll find out what's
So
happening.
your tie is a little askew.
Oh yeah, doggone. There. Okay. All right. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, how you doing tonight, Chuck?
Okay.
I was just wondering what that thing on your head was.
This?
Yeah, and around your neck.
This here's the.
That's a skunk.
It's a raccoon.
Raccoon? I thought it was a skunk.
No,
Come on, Fred. Skunks are black and white.
that's an official raccoon hat for the Loyal Order of the Lodge of the Raccoons.
Okay, what's the thing around your neck?
This here?
Yeah.
That is the sacred poodle. Sacred
What's
pink.
that do?
Sacred pink poodle.
Yeah, but what's that good for?
Well,
It's good for nothing.
That's what I thought.
it's got a slot in the back to save money in there. And of course, if you're out swimming, you can wear this around your neck and go swimming and put your money in here. And then after you're done swimming, you break it open and buy yourself an ice cream cone or whatever you need. So these are great at the swimming pool. See, there's a slot right there in the back. You can put your coins in there. Wear this around your neck if you're out swimming at the pool or.
Yeah, but if you have to break it after you go swimming, then you have to use the money to buy another one.
Yeah, well, that's.
Then you can't buy an ice cream cone.
Well,
So it doesn't really pay to buy it.
this will hold a lot of money, so you can buy a lot of ice cream cones. And of course, these are the latest rage out on the West Coast. And of course, that'll make its way here by this summer. You'll see everybody on the beach wearing these.
I still haven't seen those Mickey Mouse things yet around your neck that one time.
Oh yeah, we wore them here last week, so they're getting more popular every day. So, what's your question?
Well, I just basically called to say that we're happy to have Fred back.
Yes, it's been
Thank
a long
you.
time. How long's it been, Fred?
About a month
Too
and a
long.
half.
Too
20,
long.
25 years now?
Too long.
All right.
Okay, I guess that's about it. Thanks,
Okay,
Chuck.
well, thanks for calling in.
Chuck off.
We like those kind of calls, Fred, except for that childish language there at the end.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Fred, what's your first shorty there?
You want to hear this? Liberal Republicans abandoning party's conservative mandate. The day before Newt Gingrich became Speaker, 13 House colleagues, calling themselves the Republican Discussion Group, met over lunch to plot a strategy for diluting the contract with America. This splinter group represents between 20 and 30 of the 230 Republicans in the House, in which the GOP commands a majority of 25. This fraction threatens the Republican agenda, starting with the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. The party leadership under Gingrich has, however, reluctantly feels it must deal with the rebels. And with not much heckling, 73 House Republican freshmen are not traditionally submissive rookies and are more willing to challenge their leaders. They are furious that this tiny, liberal, moderate minority could be the tail wagging the dog. And one of the ones in this is Congressman Steve Gunderson.
Didn't he kind of barge into Gunderson's office and threaten him to derail the contract with America?
Could be.
That's what I heard. Now that was in Human Events, right?
Yes,
The National Conservative Weekly.
yes.
And Gunderson's one of the leaders of this. What do they call themselves?
Uh,
Pink Brigade or what?
no. The Republican Discussion Group.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, Fred, we'll take some discussion right here on the...
He's showing his true colors, Gunderson.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, what is there, they claim to have about, call them the Friday morning group or something? Or
I don't know.
But they meet from time to time, and they claim that they're going to hold the balance of power, I think, with what they're saying in this new contract with America. Either Gingrich deals with those liberals, or they're not going to get what they want passed. So far, I think they've got everything they wanted passed. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Chuck. I've talked to you several times before, and I watch you every time. I know when you're coming on, but there seems to be a jumping schedule. The reason I called was you were uncertain about when Arizona was admitted to the Union. Arizona and New Mexico were both admitted in 1912.
Yeah.
And I got a question for you.
Was it February 13th?
I can't tell you that, but I know it was 1912. I'll swear to that.
Yeah. Well,
I can't tell you what
where
month.
were you last Monday when we asked that question? You could have won the prize.
Well, it says Monday.
Yeah, last Monday we asked that question.
Oh,
The
well,
question-
I'm sorry. I tuned in after you'd already started, so I thought you were asking you that you didn't know.
Well, this one, here's the question for this Monday. 1962, February 20th. This Marine Lieutenant Colonel became the first American to go into orbit around the Earth when he circles it 3 times and safely lands in the Atlantic. You win those beautiful playing cards there with an elephant on them. If you can answer that question. You got that answer?
Yeah, I'm studying it through my head, and I'm not coming out with anything right
1962, 33 years ago today.
now. Well, I'm old enough to remember, because I do remember that stuff. They taught it to us in junior high school, but
Remember Yuri Gagarin? And
I don't really remember. The question I was going to ask you is, I missed the start of the show. Maybe you explained it, maybe you didn't. What happened to your eyes?
oh, we were studying for a test, and
He's been drinking.
I got carried away there.
That it? Well, I've been drinking too, man, but, oh, my God.
Yeah, we were studying for a test there, and we got carried away and forgot what time it was, and time got away with us, and here we are.
You were studying Jack Daniels a little too hard, it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say goodnight, and
Well-
I'll think about. I know it wasn't Buzz Aldrin, but it was one of those early astronauts.
It was close. He's a true American hero.
Carl. Nah, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll give up, and I'll let you go talk to somebody else.
All right.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks for
Enjoy
calling.
your show.
Thanks for calling in. Okay.
You know that Gunderson was the leader of that discussion group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he barged his way into Gingrich's office and said, "You do what we say, or else, or we'll derail your contract with America." Well, Fred, you know, part of that contract with America, we get this intelligence report from Howard Phillips, Issues and Strategy Bulletin.
Yes.
He's saying that Lamar Alexander and Bill Bennett are proposing to reorganize federal control of education, not abolish it.
Yeah.
You know, we've heard the
Lamar Anderson and who?
Lamar Alexander and Bill Bennett.
Bill Bennett.
In testimony before the House Economic and Education Opportunities Committee, Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigation on January 26th, former Secretary of Education Lamar Alexander and Bill Bennett spoke as follows. Here is the heart of our proposal for the long term. The Congress should take every single activity currently housed in the Department of Education and do one of 3 things with it. Send it home to the states and communities, entrust it to another federal agency that is suited to conduct it in harmony with related activities, or abolish it on the grounds that the federal government can no longer afford to spend money on programs that have outlived their usefulness or that can be handled satisfactorily by others. With minor exceptions, they reject option C, abolition. Moreover, because their premises are not constitutionally grounded, their conclusions are off base. Virtually all major programs assisting elementary, secondary education should be combined into a block and returned to the states and communities. I don't know, Fred. That's part of that Goals 2000 business. You know, I don't know if that block grant business is a good deal or not, Fred. Some of these liberal city councils and county boards and governors, state governors get a hold of that money, and they'll be spending it instead of giving it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Would you rather have it in your pocket, Fred, or in some liberal bureaucrat's pocket?
I'd rather have it in my pocket.
I think most people would say that. All right, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, mind giving us one hint on the astronaut question?
Yeah, 1962, February 20th, Marine Lieutenant Colonel. The first American to go in orbit around the Earth.
I'd have to guess Neil Armstrong.
Nope. Matter of fact, the Russians already had a guy up there, Yuri Gagarin, if you remember that name.
Yeah.
And it scared the Americans there, Fred. You remember those days back then when all of a sudden
Yes.
they...
Are you going to give me one more guess?
What do you think, Fred?
Let them try.
All right.
Chuck Yeager.
Nope. You know, Yeager, he flew all them fancy secret planes, but he never did go into...
Orbit.
They never did send him up into outer space orbit.
How do you guys know this much about this subject?
Well, I'm old enough to remember those days, but I remember Chuck Yeager, they never gave him the opportunity. He broke every speed record out there, but they never would put him in orbit. I think there was a little jealousy going on between him and that original 6 astronauts.
Mm-hmm. What is the COW report anyways? What's that stand for?
What does that stand for, Fred?
Christians of
You
Wisconsin.
keep changing it every time I turn around.
Christians of Wisconsin.
Conservatives of Wisconsin, Christians of Wisconsin, anything of that nature.
Okay. Exactly, what kind of platform are you guys standing on there tonight? And I don't mean the construction of your set. Is this a Christian conservative program going on here? Or?
Well, it's the Loyal Order of the Raccoons.
I guess, with Eau Claire political spectrums, Channel 11 occasionally hosts I wouldn't call it a political spectrum, but at least a political spectacle of the city council and the other county meetings as such that pertain to us taxpayers. And I would consider them halfway legitimate in their, information and other information that'd be given out. But you guys kind of take the cake when it comes to the uniqueness of what you're putting on here. Kind of has that all-star wrestling effect on me. And, not that I'm trying to badmouth you guys, but what I would do if I was you, continue to cause this feeling that I'm having, which would be one of disorganizational, unsolicited comment type, Anyways, what I'm trying to say is you ought to charge people to call you, raise money for your, because it kind of, by how you're doing this, it kind of incites something in a person to want to call and say, hey, this, hey, that, hey, you got to say something about that and that, that and that. And some people just have to hang in on hold until you get, until they get enabled themselves to voice this. And I think maybe we should think about charging people to call you. What do you think about that?
Well, we would like to. We're hoping one of these days we'll bust out nationally and they'll pick us up. I guess there's going to be 500 TV channels one of these days, and there's supposed to be 100 new talk shows going to be breaking out on television. Hopefully.
How many people do you guys estimate you're reaching tonight? How many households, on average, do you think are tuned in?
Well, there's a potential of close to 30,000 homes that can reach it, which, it goes all the way to Elk Mound, I think down into Washington Township, Union Township, Eau Claire, Halley, southern parts of Chippewa County, Altoona.
Have you ever gotten feedback as to exactly how many are watching each program?
Somebody tried to tell me once on the daytime show that we got a couple thousand people watching, but like say in the evening, it's you're up against football right now. We're not up against football, so I think we pick up some viewers on Mondays after the football season. But there's a potential of everyone on the cable system is watching. It could get close to 100,000, but it could be as small as 5 or 10,000. I don't know. It's we're not on the ratings. We're not on what are those ratings, Fred? Nielsen and all that. We're not. Yeah. They don't rate public access. So, but I'm sure from time to time Channel 13 gets mad at us because we take away some of their viewers.
Okay. Okay, well, Moo Chuck, Moo Fred, have a good night.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for calling in.
Bye now.
You know, Fred, we like those kind of calls, people that are, you know, they're thinking. We like those people that think, Fred.
Straighten your tie out.
Well, you know, Fred, they're about ready to push that $20 billion boondoggle from Mexico down our throats.
Yeah.
Clinton's about ready to button that one up. It was $50 billion, but he couldn't sell that to the public because on one hand, here we had an old Newt trying to take off Barney, the dinosaur, and Big Bird off of public television, and on the other, which takes a couple $100 million. And on the other hand, Newt was going to give the Mexicans $50 billion
Oh,
of our tax money, and it didn't add up. So he backed off on that and backed off on the public television deal, and so now they're going to sneak this $20 billion guarantee through. But you know something, Fred? All it is paying off them Eastern bankers. It's not helping the Mexican people. They're just going to be as poor tomorrow as they are today. They're not going to see one penny.
are they going to owe more money?
Not one peso. As a matter of fact, it's costing more to live right now while they're twiddling their thumbs on this thing.
Well, you know, the bankers were the ones who made those loans.
Yep.
And since they are the ones who profit, if there is a profit, they should take the loss too and not pass it on to us.
You know, I guess Newt Gingrich has made a threat to any Republican that gets out of line. According to the Washington Times, February 10th, a growing number of House Republicans disagree with Mr. Gingrich's endorsement of President Clinton's attempt to stabilize the Mexican peso with $47 billion in loans.
Well,
I
he
guess-
led the Republicans into paying or voting for that.
Fred, it goes back to that NAFTA baloney. When they pushed
Yeah.
that down the Americans' throats and that failed, and now all of a sudden Mexico's $50 billion in debt. Now they got to prop it up to save the NAFTA and the World Trade Organization and GATT. The whole thing is collapsing around them, so they're going to it's throwing bad money after bad money, Fred.
I agree.
And whose pocketbook gets, who gets into your pocketbook? The government does.
Yes.
Pay for these boondoggles. Of course, Newt doesn't want to have egg on his face, so he's willing to throw another $50 billion down a rat hole down there. They can't even get control of our own borders. This isn't the United States until they get control of the borders, Fred.
I think we need somebody who is a real American as our Speaker of the House, who's concerned about our country and not about the world and big business and so forth.
We need to send about 20,000 troops down there in the southwestern part of the state, of the country, and get back control of our own borders. There's up to 5,000 people a day going across some of the borders down there, some of them
Right.
entry points. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I think I have the answer to your question.
Well, it's about time.
Yeah, I can't believe nobody knows it. John Glenn.
That's right. Now, you want an all-expense paid trip to come down here to public access to take a tour, and like I say, if Fred's here, he'll take you on a guided tour of the public access studios, and you'll get these fine cards here, and they'll be out at the reception desk, and you can take a tour of the Cow Report studios and the whole shebang.
Can I get Fred's autograph?
Yep, we got a piece of paper there. Fred, put it on there right now, and we'll put it with the cards so we don't forget it. He'll autograph that right now and put it right with these cards, and you'll get them.
Take that down to the mall this weekend and put it up for the celebrity auction they got going on.
All right. The cards too?
Sure, why not? I got
Okay.
the cards anyway.
Here, I'll autograph it too. Fred and I both will, and we'll have it down here for you.
Okay. Oh, by the way, Fred, you're right on with that the Mexican loan thing. I think you got the right answer there.
Yes.
We ought to get a letter writing campaign to Newt Gingrich and you sign it for us.
Yes. I agree with it because that's throwing away money. That when we're giving it to the bankers are the ones that made the loan, not us.
That's right.
And they should take the loss if it's lost.
Yep, it's those Eastern establishment, liberal, Republican, and Democratic bankers. It doesn't matter, Fred. They're in both parties, but it's just a money grab. They sit there all day in their boardrooms, Fred, figuring out how they can fleece the American people out of more tax money. And what better way to get them off the hook is to dump this whole Mexican mess on the American people and make them pay for it.
That's right.
Just like the savings and loan boondoggle, which got up over $100 billion finally. We're still paying off those failed savings and loans. It's amazing how they get the bankers off the hook and put the American people on the hook.
So, Chuck,
Yeah.
who do you think, which Republican is going to beat Clinton in '96 then?
Well, I'll tell you, it kind of looks like if you were going to the track and betting, it would look. I would say that Bob Dole has the inside track, and Colin Powell is his vice president candidate. If those two to get together, I'd say Clinton ain't got a prayer, and if they can talk the guy that destroyed it last time, Perot, if they can talk him out of running, it'll be a landslide for Dole and Colin Powell.
We should elect somebody who is concerned about our country and not about giving it away.
See,
And I'm thinking of Pat Buchanan or Bob Dornan.
Yeah, Fred, they've got about as much chance as an ice cube down on the equator.
What kind of chance do you think that Dan Quayle had before he dropped out?
I guess not very good. All of a sudden, he was in there about 2 weeks and put his toe in the water. And of course, Quayle's very young. You know, look, we got Dole's in his 70s. He's talking about doing a one-term campaign, running just for 4 years and getting out. That'll pave the way for Quayle and some of the younger people to come in and
Easy there, Fred.
take. But Quayle, see, I think Quayle kind of looked at that and said, well, I'm still in my 40s. 4 years, well, actually almost 6 years from now, he'll be in his early 50s. So we're not done seeing Quayle. He's going to be around.
Oh, what about our own boy here from Wisconsin, Tommy Thompson?
Well, Tommy could end up being somebody's vice presidential candidate. I don't think this time around he's got enough juice to be president, but he does have a good money-raising machine. You got to give him that. He can raise $50,000-$100,000 a day when he wants to.
Yeah, he's been showing up on C-SPAN here now and then too, the national C-SPAN, so he's getting the national exposure too.
I don't think he's got enough this time around to get the presidential, but there has been talk for several years that he would end up being a vice presidential candidate for several different people. So he'll be in the running for vice president. And he's got that Midwestern backing behind him, so if it's somebody like Dole from Kansas or Graham from Texas, they'll be looking for somebody from the north or the east to run with them. So it could very well be Tommy on the ballot too. But see, with Colin Powell, they get a lot of the minorities will jump on board and vote for Colin Powell. The independents will vote for him because he hasn't declared himself a Democrat or Republican yet. He leans Republican, but he could bust up that stranglehold that the Democrats have had on the black vote for the last 40, 50 years. And if he does that, it's all over for Clinton. That's why Clinton keeps nominating blacks to his cabinet, because that's the only group that stayed with him so far. He's lost just about every other constituency, Fred, because of his blunders. So that's the way it looks.
Latest nominees haven't been so stellar either, so the black nominees, so.
Yeah, they kind of blundered on this final one too, and it shows you that the abortion issue is still a big issue out there. It's not going to go away. Christian Coalition's already said that they got to go through them to get to be the next president, and they control between anywhere from 20 to 30 million votes in the next election. So whoever becomes the nominee is going to have to deal with the Christian Coalition, or they're not going to get elected. They've also got to deal with Perot, who's pro-abortion. So if all this falls apart, Clinton will be in there for another 4 years. So they're really going to have to be walking on eggshells to pull this thing off. But if they can come up with somebody like Dole and Thompson or Dole and Powell, it looks pretty good for the Republicans. If they can talk Perot into laying out. Of course, Perot spent $70 million on the last campaign. I don't know if he's up to blowing another. It takes about $95 million to win it. It took Clinton $90 million. Bush spent $95 and Perot $70 million, the three main candidates in '92. And they'll break those records this time. It'll go over $100 million to win the thing. It's a lot of money for a job that pays what?
Pocket change for you, huh, Fred?
Yeah.
What do they pay the president now, Fred? $200,000?
200,000, I think.
Yep, it's $200,000.
So they spend $100 million to get $200,000. Go figure. Well, thanks a lot, caller, and you won, and we got your signature, we got your autographs here, and we're putting the cow report right on that.
Well, throwing in that big cow on your desk, too.
Well, that's the only one I got for the, you mean for the auction?
No.
That's the only one I got for...
Oh,
You know what we ought to probably do, Fred, is make some cow lapel pins. Maybe sell those to finance this program, because from time to time it costs us money to run this show. You know, we brought up Jeffrey Dahmer's pastor from Madison, and that cost a little money to bring him up, and we have the cost of tapes, and Roy Rogers Hoff, our engineer, he needs a little stipend, and it runs into several $100s a year to produce this thing. Of course, if we go national, it's going to be several thousand.
Is that right?
So thanks a lot, caller.
okay.
All right. Okay, Fred, you got another shorty there.
Well, see what we got here.
Because I got a blockbuster. I just got this in the mail.
Clinton administration funding Nelson Mandela's government in South Africa. Several U.S. programs are being used by the administration to help Nelson Mandela's South African regime. The new projects are slated to bring $1 3/10 billion to South Africa, including 2 equity funds established by the Overseas Private Investment Corporation with a direct cost of $150 million. There is a $100 million enterprise fund ostensibly to help businesses in the region, as well as $150 million from the Agency for International Development in loan guarantees for electrification and housing projects.
Well, who's going to do all that?
Well, that's what the Clinton administration is doing.
And where's that at?
There's South Africa.
Oh.
Nelson Mandela's government.
You know, Fred, we got some late breaking news here. I just read this, and it's going to shock the viewers out there, Fred.
Is that right?
But first of all, we're going to ask another question of you, Fred, here, because you did so good on that first one. We might as well throw another one at you. February 22nd, 1732, this man was born, and he became the father of our country.
Oh, that's George Washington.
And that's why they call today President's Day, because they honor him, and I think it's Abe Lincoln, don't they, Fred?
Oh, I think it's...
Or all the presidents. They honor them all now? On President's Day?
No. How about our black friend there?
What do you mean?
Who was killed?
No, this is President's Day. Yesterday.
I know.
Martin Luther King's birthday. They had his
I know.
His celebration was a couple months ago, or last month, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fred, but we do have one more here. Since you did so good on that, I'll shoot you another one real quick. 1965. This black Muslim leader is murdered during a speech in New York City on February 21st, tomorrow. 30 years ago tomorrow. His daughter just got in a little trouble over in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I can't think of the guy's name. I know it, but I can't think of his name.
X marks the spot, Fred.
Yeah. Malcolm X.
Yep, Fred got it right again. I'll tell you, he's still batting 1,000 after all these years. Malcolm X. Okay. All right. 30 years ago tomorrow, Fred. Now his daughter is up on some phony charges that she was going to kill that nutcase from Chicago, that flamingo dancer. What's his name? Farrakhan. Okay, Fred, here's the bad news out there. We better take a call before we read this bad news. Just came in the mail. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'd like to know why Fred keeps answering all those questions. I thought they were offered up to everyone.
Well, I'll ask you one then, since you're on the air.
Okay.
It's going to be a hard one, though. Are you a pretty good historian?
I'm a great historian.
Okay.
Better than Fred. Hey, I'm just kidding, Fred.
That's all right. I know I'm not that great.
Okay. February 21st, 1975, 20 years ago tomorrow. former White House aides, or 2 of them, are sentenced to 30-month terms for their activities in the Watergate cover-up. And I attended those Watergate hearings, Fred, and now I told you this is going to be a tough one. 2 of those Watergate former White House aides are sentenced to 30-month terms. And they're two of the top dogs there, got 30 months each.
How about if I get one of them? G. Gordon Liddy?
Well, G. Gordon got 5 years, and I think he spent every day of it in there, even though he was an FBI agent. He said, I'm not ratting on anybody, I'll go to prison. He spent 5 years in a federal prison. But these 2 were John Ehrlichman and H.R. Halderman.
Oh, jeez. Say, I got a question for Fred.
Yes.
Would you classify yourself as a communist?
No.
No? Then you considering running for presidency?
I'm not. I'm not going to run for the presidency. No.
No chance, huh?
No. I'm 77 years old now. I'm going to be 78 in May. And
Hey, you don't look it.
I'm feeling it though.
All right. Well, it's good to have you back, Fred, and
Thank you.
all of us here down Water Street. Just like to invite you to have sex with yourself.
What, are you in a bar down there or something? Okay, Fred. Here's an interesting little note. Of course, I'm going to have to read this first.
Let's hear it.
Now, you brought it up there. You had the part of the article there, Fred. Where's that article you had on Gunderson? 'Cause I just got this
It's in
from
my
the Howard,
pocket.
I just got this from the Howard Phillips Issues and Strategy Bulletin, dated February 15th, 95. Just came in the mail. And
That was from Human Events.
oh, there was more to it here, Fred. There was an article that says, who is Steve Gunderson?
Yeah.
Well, here was the rest of the story, Fred. And it was in, part of this, I think, was in Human Events, page 2. Of course, you only got page 1 there, so you missed it.
Oh, this must be page 2.
Nope. Well, here's the rest of it, Fred. GOP leader Gunderson and his lover also cracked the whip. Unsafe sex. Representative Steve Gunderson, Republican, Wisconsin, who now heads the moderate Republican discussion group. See Human Events cover January 27th. Has been a patron of a District of Columbia gay bar called the Green Lantern that caters to sadomasochists, according to Peter LaBarbera of the Lambda Report. Now, this is a quote, Fred. In the roughly 15 minutes spent upstairs, writes LaBarbera, this reporter witnessed video scenes of condomless anal sodomy and fellatio. This also condomless, both condemned by most AIDS specialists as dangerous. While it's unknown how often Gunderson and his lover visit this establishment, LaBarbera suggests that this is no place for the member of a party that supposedly represents family values.
Correct.
Well, Fred, that's not me. That came out of the, right there, out of the Howard Phillips February 15th issue. So you missed the rest of it on there, Fred, on the Human Events story there. So when you're in Washington, Fred, check that out. The green, it's called the, what is that called again? It's called the Green Lantern. All right, we better take a call, Fred.
Okay.
But you know, first of all, I was going to read this little deal here, Fred, about, you like to eat a lot of fruit, you know, Fred?
Yes.
You eat a lot of fresh, raw fruit and vegetables, don't you? Mostly fruit, raw?
Yeah.
Billions of pounds of fresh fruit and vegetables contaminated with illegal pesticides find their way onto supermarket shelves each year, a study group says. Farmers in the United States and abroad routinely use pesticides that have been banned by the Food and Drug Administration because of cancer and other health risks, the Environmental Working Group said Thursday. In a report titled Forbidden Fruit, the group said the Food and Drug Administration finds many more cases of illegal pesticide residue than it admits to the public. The average American is at least 15 times more likely to eat an illegal pesticide than to eat from a shipment tested by the FDA. We do not consider findings of a few parts per billion to be a significant public risk, said Jones from the FDA's pesticide specialist. About 1% of FDA tests on domestic produce, and 3 to 5% of imported produce, Fred, shows violations. Now, some of these are pretty nasty known human carcinogens, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
The group said the banned pesticides include Captan, a probable human carcinogen, chlorpyrifos, a potent neurotoxin, and endosulfane, a chemical cousin of DDT that mimics the female hormone estrogen in the human body. According to the report, the FDA has found 1/4 of all green peas, especially those from Guatemala, and 12% of apple juice, blackberries, and green onions were contaminated with illegal residues, Fred. Now, thanks to NAFTA, we're going to get a lot of that junk dumped on the markets in this country. Matter of fact, right now, as we speak, Fred, the Mexican government is dumping tomatoes in this country by the millions of bushel baskets of them. They're dumping them here below cost of production just to get them in the country and get some cash. The report said the FDA also had detected 10 or more different illegal pesticides on 8 different crops, including carrots, strawberries, pears, cantaloupes, and under-reports the actual rate by 76%, Fred. So that's your FDA at work. Of course, you know, with the thousands of lobbyists out there for the food industry, throwing money at these congressmen, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, buying them off, Fred. A lot of people look the other way and let that junk get right on the shelves of America's supermarkets. And once again, who pays for it, Fred?
We do.
That's right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, what do you think about Steve Gunderson being gay and all the queers in the White House?
What do you think about that, Fred? You were hobnobbing with him yesterday down there at the Civic Center.
I don't like it.
Well, they got something like 30 of them in the White House running things there. I wonder if they all meet down at the Green Lantern and watch these porno films.
I don't know.
Says here, right here, Fred, this reporter witnessed video scenes of condomless anal sodomy and fellatio, also condomless. In this day and age, Fred, they're still pushing that stuff. That's one of the most dangerous acts on the face of the earth to contact AIDS, is those 2 acts.
Yes.
And there's right there in Washington, D.C., they ought to shut that thing down in a minute, Fred. Of course, they got to be careful when they raid it. They're liable to find several congressmen in there. All right. What do you got there, Fred? I know you've been eagerly awaiting a shorty you had there.
Well, I see. Canada's healthcare system, the socialization of healthcare in Canada has actually increased costs while complaints about the quality of service have mounted. According to a Toronto management firm, Canadians spend about $67 billion annually on health care, which is an increase of 37% since 1987. As a result, cost containment measures are being implemented, including merging hospitals, charging patients more for their deductibles, and cutting the amount available for reimbursement on pharmaceutical drugs. Rather interesting.
Yeah, Fred. You know, on tonight's school board meeting, we'll scoop the other news services here in town. Tonight, just over here at the school board meeting, they had they've been trying to push this thing where they were going to force the students to ride buses down to the tournaments, like in Madison and stuff. Force them onto school buses instead of letting them go individually drive down. And they were hoping that would save expenses and things like that. Well, the thing died tonight for lack of a second. In other words, there was enough intelligent people on the school board to realize that if there was one wreck, that they could sue the pants off the school district, Fred. If there was one wreck or somebody got hurt or some girl, or if they were passing out condoms on the bus there for their parties down there, if they stayed overnight and got drunk and jumped out a third-story window or whatever, the school would be directly responsible for that. So the more intelligent people on the school board decided that that wasn't that good of an idea, but I guess the school administrators were trying to push that, Fred, to force all students to ride on the school buses. Sounded like a big liability boondoggle to me, Fred, so that failed for lack of a second. All right, Fred, we better take a call here, and then we'll discuss that issue there. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey there, how you doing?
All right.
All right, that's good. Fred, glad to have you back.
Thank you.
I listened to the, I don't know if it was the last show, but you were gone and you called in from your sick bed, and it was great joy to hear your voice again. Anyways, I'm a little disappointed. I knew the questions or the answers to both your questions. One answer was McCarthy, and the other one was John Glenn. Well, for a deck of cards, I mean, you got another question for me?
Fred, you got any more of them cards?
I think Betty has got some.
Who does?
You think you'd donate another deck of cards, Fred, if we can ask this girl a question? Of course.
Come on, please.
Are you a college student or high school?
High school.
All right. Well, Fred, I don't know. We'll give her a tough one. She probably won't get it anyway.
Oh, come on.
Let's see here. Well, we only have a certain amount of them left here, so we'll ask you this one here. 1792.
All right.
February 20th, on this date, President George Washington signed this act creating this federal office which deals with the mail.
The Postal Act.
That's right. It's the first Postal Act. President George Washington signs the first Postal Act February 20th, 1792, and I think, Fred, last year the Postal Service was several $billion in the hole.
Yeah.
You know, when he started with a handful of people that were just going to kind of keep an eye on the Postal Service and start setting up some routes and things, and they never envisioned the boondoggle it is today, Fred. The red ink is flowing all over the place, but the top leaders of the Postal Service get all kinds of bonuses. It's amazing. Well, okay.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I never win anything. All right, this is great.
Okay, well, if Fred's down here, he'll take you on a tour of the L.A. Phillips Memorial Library and Public Access and the Cow reports sat here, and they might even, Fred might even give you his autograph or something.
All right, if it wouldn't be too much of a problem, that'd be great. And I just heard you talking about that school board meeting tonight, and I think that's great that it didn't pass. I mean, I thought it was just ridiculous.
Are they handing out condoms at your school yet?
No.
Well, that's good, because that's another big liability if they ever get thinking they know enough about that, Fred. They start handing out condoms and somebody comes up pregnant or with an STD. For all you laymen out there, STD means sexually transmitted disease. Okay, well, thanks a lot, caller, and we'll have that deck of cards down here for you in the next few days. All right? Okay. Well, Fred, I hope they never start handing them out in this school district, because all they're doing is asking for disaster. Somebody's going to think that that's the end-all and the be-all, and they're going to use them. They're going to bust because something upwards of 20% of them break or leak. Somebody's going to end up getting pregnant or...
Yeah, I've known some people where their girlfriend became pregnant.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Fred, now, what do you got there?
Well, here I got
another big blockbuster here.
Question, on the eve of Veterans Day, the president's attitude towards the military, an issue that has dogged him since he ran for governor of Arkansas, resurfaced. And the most casual observer of the Clinton presidency could not fail to see that the White House has turned a cold shoulder to veterans. Right from the beginning, the Clinton administration demonstrated an antipathy towards veterans. Stories made the rounds in Washington about military officers being asked not to wear their uniform to the White House. One particularly telling episode came from, which received a fair amount of media attention, involved a decorated Vietnam veteran, Lieutenant General Barry McCaffrey, who, upon passing an aide in the White House grounds with a friendly hello, was met by the aide's frosty response, "I don't talk to the military." The White House made no effort to discipline that underling, but the president tried to mollify General McCaffrey by jogging with him.
That's amazing, Fred. It's amazing
Yeah.
what they can do. They can get the deals they cut while they're jogging. Okay. Something wrong there, Roy? Roy Rogers Hoff just came in the studio and messing with one of the cameras there. So we'll take a call here, Fred, and then we're going to talk about what's going on over in the Ukraine. It's amazing how they're doing this, Fred, but they're actually going to dismantle the nuclear weapons in the Ukraine. Guess who's getting the job? Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, Chuck. Hey,
Hello.
Fred.
How are you this evening?
Hey, I'm pretty peachy keen, eh?
Yeah.
This is Ed from Eau Claire.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, before I ask you your question, eh, I'd just like to say you two hosers got one beauty of a show, eh?
All right, well, thank you. Are you from north of the border?
Oh, yeah, I'm from, like, me and my brother, we're from Canada, eh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're Bob and Doug McKenzie, eh?
All right.
No, but, me getting back to business here, eh? Who's at fault in this baseball strike, the owners or the players, eh? Let's hear some input.
What do you think about that baseball strike, Fred? You've been a baseball fan. I know
Well,
you played some minor league ball
I
when
think
you were younger.
the owners are trying to keep the payments down. Several of the clubs do make money, and they can afford these outrageous salaries that they pay. But a number of the smaller clubs or in smaller cities, they are having a rough time. So this is to placate them, to keep that from getting out of hand and forcing them into bankruptcy.
Fred, were you in on the East Peoria leg Irons? Was that the name of the team?
No.
Minor league team back in the 30s?
No.
What was the name of that team?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, Fred. Well, here's something you didn't know, Fred. As a matter of fact, the original date on this is 17th of February. Actually, the 10th. This first hit the Commerce Business Daily. And what it is they're going to be taking, it's called an RFP. It's a bid process. And what the bid process is the integrated ICBM silo dismantlement in the Ukraine. And the date of to bid on this, Fred, if you want to bid on this, you can go over to the Ukraine and dismantle the SS-19 ICBM missile silos in the whole country of the Ukraine. They're going to dismantle every one of them, Fred. And here's what the contract calls for you to dismantle. 130 launch silos, 13 launch control center silos, and 2 training silos. A total of 145 missile silos, Fred, they had pointed at us during the Cold War in the Ukraine alone. And that's just one of the former Soviet countries over there that's kind of spun off and is pseudo-autonomous now. 150 silos, Fred. Now, each one of those silos had a missile in it. Each missile had several warheads on it. Ukraine alone could have wiped us out 100 times over. Well, now, the United States, in conjunction with Ukraine, are putting out a bid. Leave it to the capitalists to get involved in it, Fred. They're putting this out on a bid process to dismantle all 150 of those silos. Dismantle them, tear them apart, and fill them in and turn them back to cow pastures. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
But there's only one little catch to this, Fred. Now, this isn't top secret. This parts of this are, and as a matter of fact, the Ukraine government wants to make sure that they're involved in this bid process so they can put their cronies in there to make their millions off the deal. But this is, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar deal here, Fred. Could go into the billions to do this. But I'm sure the taxpayer is going to have to pay for the dismantling of these 150 silos over in the Ukraine. That's over in Russia, folks. Same country Steve Gunderson voted for to give money to. As a matter of fact, Fred, it's the same country now that's building, it's going to build nuclear reactors in Iran. It's also the same country that has that Mir space station. And here we are sending them money. And they've got a space station up there in space, and we don't even have one yet. Anyway, we're sending them money, the taxpayers of the United States, to prop up the butchers of the Chechnyan people over there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Fred, we're going to dismantle 150 of these. There's a pre-solicitation conference on the 22nd of February at the Center for Verification Research in Newington, Virginia. Even got a phone number here, Fred, but if you want to bid on it, the phone number is 703-325-6762. I'm sure some of the minorities out there would like to bid on that, Fred, because there'll be some minority bids, and there'll be some subcontracting, and of course you got to give the Ukrainians their cut, though, now on this. So this bid is for 150 silos, but the only catch to it, Fred, is the missiles are gone. The 150 missiles are missing. All you're going to be doing is dismantling the silos. Now the big question is, what happened to the 150 missiles that were in there?
Yeah.
And all the warheads. That's the big question, Fred. So the United States is getting stuck with foot in the bill on dismantling them. But the missiles are gone. They're probably back in Russia in some other silo. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Howdy, Chuck.
Hello.
Yeah, I got a question for Fred.
All right.
This is going along with that. Astronauts in space. He's had all this great schooling, and the schooling's bad. It's a physics question for him. If an astronaut stands in space and he takes a leak, does he go the same speed the other way as his leak goes one way?
That's one of them gravitational questions, Fred.
Yeah.
Since there's no gravitation in the space, the urine would stay right there. It wouldn't go one way or the other. It'd just hang in space. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wanting to ask Fred a question.
All right, Fred. See how popular, Fred?
Yeah.
All them cards and letters and everything. And
I was just wondering if he's still sick. He's over there coughing up a lung, you know.
I am.
Oh, yeah? What? We care about you. Just get better, buddy.
Thank you.
Quit smoking those bowls.
all right, Fred. Yeah, they love you out there, Fred.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we better take another call here, Fred. We like to take care of these callers here.
Yes.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck.
Yeah.
Couple points. First off, I just tuned in a little bit late, so I came in when you were talking about Gunderson. And, excuse me. I just don't think that his sexual orientation has any relevance to his ability to legislate or govern. So.
Oh.
First point. And I may be covering ground you've already visited.
Hey, what do you think about Clarence Thomas?
What do I think about him?
Yeah.
Well,
remember the
relevant now. He's already at justice.
Remember the heat he took over a little bit of dirty talk in the washroom of his office or whatever? Something about some porno movie he saw, and remember the national flap over that?
Oh, sure.
Here we got a...
the media, and the same type of show that you're perpetuating right now is the type of thing that is a microscope for everybody's actions for the last generation. In Clarence Thomas, whether or not he's qualified, that was past, long past. And they slandered his name, and they slandered Anita Hill's name. But a couple authors made a lot of money off the good books. The other question I had for you was, and you may have already covered it, your and Fred's opinion on the Henry Foster nomination and the big flap over that.
Okay, Fred, all right, thank you. Yes, we'll take care of that.
I'm going to stay on.
Well, we got about 2 minutes left. So.
No, that's okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Fred, Henry Foster.
Well, if he doesn't
Up or down?
if he doesn't know that murdering babies is wrong, he should not be named to the office that he is seeking.
The bigger
the
question
president
is,
wants him.
he's old enough, how many illegal abortions did he perform before they became legal? He never has mentioned. Matter of fact, he had a slip of the tongue there once and mentioned something about illegal abortions.
Yeah.
But folks, we're just merely passing on what's in the latest issues of Human Events, and also the Lambda report, telling about one of your elected officials hanging around a gay bar watching porno movies about condomless anal sodomy, Fred.
Yeah.
We don't have any personal opinion about it. We're just passing along the news. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, are you going to run for office again, Chuck?
Let's see now. Which office would that be?
Sure.
Congress?
Why not?
I don't know. If I get Steve mad enough, he might run again.
I suppose.
You know, he spent about roughly $10 a vote. I spent about under a dollar a vote.
That's good.
Well, I guess it's time to say goodbye, and we want to thank all the callers for calling in. The old trusty clock says it's almost 5 seconds till 10, so I want to thank Fred for coming back, and thank all the viewers out there, and we'll see you again right here next week on the Cow Report. Good evening, and adios.